This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Fuck 'em. I don't give a fuck. They done put me to my limit. I'm all lit.
How do I characterize the results? They're poor. Penalties and miscommunication, and there was something about every other drive that kind of stalled you. You were starting from under the back a little bit further than you'd like in certain situations, talking about putting yourself back with a holding penalty or a false start or something. And we just were not sharp at all. There was no rhythm to it, and that's my fault. I got to get these guys in better rhythm, and we got to play better. We didn't play well.
Johnny, thank you. What's your level of disappointment here as we chat this afternoon?
Well, I mean, this is when you start spring training, your goal is to get the postseason, and we didn't. So we're very disappointed.
Did you expect that Julio Teheran would dominate against your lineup here?
Well, I know he's a very good pitcher, and I know he's very tough on right-handed hitters. Unfortunately, we're a right-handed lineup, but we have good right-handed hitters. He has his stuff working today. He's a very good pitcher. Had his stuff working. It was really a story. It was him.
Is it troubling that the last 2 days with Blair last night and Teheran today, the strikeouts just seem to pile up against your team?
Is it troubling? I'm not going to worry about it now because it doesn't really mean anything.
You have joked about it in the past couple of days, all in fun. But what is your confidence level that you'll be back as the Tiger manager next year?
It's not something I'm worried about.
Not your typical open to the DocNJock program.
I wanted a trumpet that sounded sad. You give me angry Tupac.
That's right. I'm not sad. I'm angry. I'm not sad.
What is that?
You're not angry?
Can we even air this?
Yes, we can air it.
There was a lot of F-bombs.
That's a lot of F-bombs.
Oh, my God.
How could you be sad?
I wanted the swan song trumpet. That's what I wanted. And this is what you give me? You give me F-bomb city.
That's what this episode is going to be about. Anger, frustration. Listen, girls be sad. I'm not sad. I'm pissed. Episode 165.
Girls be sad. There you go.
Episode 165
Put those words together.
On the Detroit Sports Podcast Network is available for download. This is how we feel today. As we're recording this, the news has now broke. Brad Ausmus has returned. Jim Caldwell still your head coach of the Detroit Lions. I'm pissed off as all hell. This is probably the worst weekend in Detroit sports history in terms of what happened.
Off with your Michigan State Spartans too.
Michigan State
they're
losing.
Fire.
Their season's over, and now we're talking about who's tweeting mean shit to Tyler O'Connor. Mark D'Antonio's coming out and saying, listen, we can take some positives from this. No, there's no positives. This last weekend was atrocious, and I'm sitting here this week grumpy. I'm frustrated, and everybody in town seems to be patient and even coming up with arguments as to why these guys should be around. Brad Ausmus should be gone, period. Another year? Another year of Brad Ausmus is upon us. And we're sitting here trying to rehash, this guy got better, whether it was a 12-game improvement from this season to last year. You go, okay, Brad Ausmus is a manager that probably is at his ceiling. Is he going to get significantly better if you scale back the payroll? Or you're going to say, okay, Brad Ausmus, if you trade off guys like J.D. Martinez, Ian Kinsler, if there's a little bit of regression with Miggy JV, that this is the guy that's going to take you over 95 wins? I had debates last night on Twitter, on our Twitter page, at Detroit Podcast, with Michigan fans that are like, what are you going to say when Brad Ausmus and the Tigers win 95-plus games next year? I said, okay, then we're going to see some disappointing moves made like you saw with Baltimore. It's a terrible week, and I cannot sit here and say that I can support Brad Ausmus earning his fourth year. Not at all.
I've come around, and after the Kansas City Royals series, where you just sat there and you watch K-Rod implode on the mound, I was on the fire Brad Ausmus bandwagon. I had sat there and I'd got off the fence because I would sit there and I'd kind of flip-flop a little bit like, yeah, he's a bad manager, but no. I'm now on the fire Brad Ausmus bandwagon, and I don't know why you bring him back. I'm not sure what the thinking is here. Again, you're going to have another year on Victor. You're going to have another year on Miguel. You have another year on Justin Verlander, who had a great season, really turned it around and looks stellar. He's in Cy Young conversations right now. Looks stellar. But you're going to add another year to those guys. At some point, there is going to be regression there. You started to see it with Miguel Cabrera. Also, Ian Kinsler, he had a great first half of the season, actually first 3 quarters of a season, and then he kind of sat there and he just kind of petered out as the season went along. I don't expect his numbers to be the same next year. I expect a little bit more from J.D. Martinez next year, but you don't have enough pieces to sit there and get you. 95 wins is a lot. That's a lot. They struggled to get to 87 this year. And 87 was the cutoff. That was what you said going into this. You said 87 wins. We put it at 90 to make the playoffs. They couldn't get to 87. You are talking about a 7-8 game difference for this team to sit there and make to win the AL Central here. I just don't see it happening. Not with Brad Ausmus. Again, biggest issues with Ausmus are the way that he handles his bullpen, the way that he handles his pitching staff. And I know that pitching staff was in flux most of the season. 80% of his pitching staff was not the same when he started the season to when he ended the season. That being said, he didn't do a good job. He did a poor job handling this pitching rotation, handling this bullpen. I mean, if you can explain to me why you're in a close game and you're going to bring Mark Lowe in, Mark Lowe pitched himself out of a job within 2 weeks. Why are you going to bring Mark Lowe back in? What's going on there? K-Rod, you see K-Rod struggling, get him out. You got Bruce Rondon. You can sit there, you can bring him in. The guy's a flamethrower. Why not bring Bruce Rondon in? Instead, you let him sit on the bench. It just, again, a lot of questionable decisions, a lot of bad moves by Ausmus, especially in regards to the pitching staff. I don't necessarily mind the way he handles the everyday players. I think that's okay, and we can get by with that. But again, the way you handle your bullpen, the way you handle your pitching staff, the way you sit there and you work guys in and out of the game, I have big issues and big question marks. And now we're going into season 4 with Ausmus? And the Tigers were real quick to sit there and take that club option on him real quick. Why not sit there and kind of temper your expectations, see what happens? I mean, there are teams that are in the playoffs right now, and there are other managers who may get fired who are a little bit better than Ausmus that you could maybe go out there and get. Now, if you're interested in getting any of these guys, you're going to have to fire Ausmus, and you're going to have to pay him more money to go away and sit on his couch. None of it makes sense. Again, the way the Tigers sometimes do business is just head-scratching at best.
Well, you've read what some writers have said is some of the thinking that the upper management has, and they're thinking, well, we've invested in Brad Ausmus, and we know the first year or two he was learning on the job, and they set forth a couple of checklists that they wanted him to do in terms of improvements, in terms of some things they wanted him to improve upon, and by all accounts, he met those, and they feel like if he's let go, that he could potentially go somewhere else and have success, and they don't want to feel like, hey, we're the training ground for a hot young manager. But the problem I saw...
You can't run an organization with fear. It doesn't work that way.
Right, and I'm thinking the ultimate goal should be to win the World Series. And so with that, I'm thinking the way this lineup looks, we're looking at least 3 to 4 more years until you're a serious contender. And so if that's the case, and you're thinking this is a rebuild, and you're going to maybe cut payroll, maybe Brad Ausmus is the guy, but you can't come out and say that we're not thinking we're going to win the World Series anymore. But if you're thinking the overall goal is to win the World Series, and that's what you're aiming for, I don't see how you look at Brad Ausmus and the staff that he's put together, and you say, hey, this is the guy that's going to win us 100 games year in and year out. What they're hoping for is one flash year that can earn them a couple extra years. I don't see Brad Ausmus consistently winning 100 games a la St. Louis and being in the postseason year in, year out. Do you see him anywhere near the level of a Bruce Bochy, who's got his team in the playoffs basically every other year and poised to have some great success? He's nowhere near that. He's nowhere near that level. So what are you seeing in him? Other than the fact the details of his contract have not been released yet, some people are thinking at the time of this recording that he's just going to earn that extra option year. And so there's kind of been some rumblings that maybe, just maybe, if the Ilitches decide once the inevitable happens and Mr. Ilitch passes away, that maybe, just maybe, they're going to be in line to maybe sell the team and have this be an issue for the next manager, and that's why you're not seeing Brad Ausmus be extended. But this is at the time of the recording on early Wednesday afternoon, so I'm not so
Ilitch
certain.
has like a year left until he kicks the bucket here? Is this what we're talking about?
Potentially, and then if they're going to sell the team, then that's why you only give Brad Ausmus one more year, and it's playoffs or bust. But do I see Brad Ausmus taking a team into the postseason? Sure, he can do that, like a Buck Showalter. But then you go, okay, let's say he gets into a managerial matchup, tight game, versus the likes of Boston, Texas, Cleveland, Toronto.
I was going to say, go Cleveland. Yeah. Look at what Cleveland did all year long. They lose their best player in Michael Brantley. They sit there and they have devastating injuries to their pitching staff. Their 2 best pitchers are on the DL, all right? And still, they wipe your face all over the field every time they played you.
And I feel like Brad Ausmus would be outmanaged. We'd be talking about a significant mistake. Let's say, for example, they bring in an Aroldis Chapman. He probably would leave him on the bench late in an extra inning game, and we'd be asking the same kind of questions. Why didn't you make this move? Why didn't you make that move? And I'd hate to see that at the highest level. So, in my opinion, if you're going to regroup and rebuild, start all over with a new manager and go from there. But at this point in time, we don't know what the payroll is going to be. Is it going to be elevated? Is it going to be decreased? Are you going to maybe trade a JD Martinez? There's a lot of question marks, but I think you could incrementally improve this team if you had gotten rid of Brad Ausmus. But now, here's a debatable point that a lot of people are talking about. People are looking at what happened in the 2016 season, and they're saying, okay, was this a playoff caliber team that Brad Ausmus mismanaged? Or but when you looked at all the expectations from the writers, from the national media, from you and I, from Vito, from the hosts at the Motor City Sports Rant, they all said this is a wild card team at best. And so do you then, give Brad Ausmus a pass and say, this is Avila who really royally jacked up the additions that he brought here, and this wasn't a team that was anywhere near the postseason? I say, listen, this was a $200 million payroll team. So there were some serious expectations. Yeah, you had some significant injuries, but you don't think Brad Ausmus cost this team at least 3 games with some moves deciding to keep pitchers in too long?
Oh, I would say at least 5 to 7.
Just the one issue alone that I put on our Twitter page, the use of K-Rod for 4-out saves. If you do that one more time, 2 more times, you use K-Rod in a 4-out save, you might be in the wild card situation. So Brad Ausmus is accountable for the moves that he made, and he doesn't make enough moves. And so I'm thinking if you had a different manager managing this 2016 squad with the same injuries and the same storyline, probably a 92 to 95 win team. And that's why it's laid at the feet of Brad Ausmus. You got the Mets, Dodgers, Indians who won the division with their 2 best hitters gone, a pitcher gone that we knocked out in a series game. Injuries? What are you talking about? Injuries happen to everybody. You don't think next year there's going to be any injuries? Everyone's talking. I'm really shocked at how people are looking at this and trying to spin it in Brad's favor. Brad's a nice guy. I'm sure he's a very upstanding citizen. But in terms of baseball decisions and what he's done, 2014, eliminated by Baltimore, no wins. 2015, no playoffs. 2016, no playoffs. That earns you 2017? What the hell's going on here? Why have we become soft all of a sudden? Brad Ausmus needs to move along. The organization needs to set higher standards. And 3 years is more than enough time to see what he is. And he's just a manager with I believe, a .517 winning percentage. He's an 85 to 90 win manager. And when it comes time to make the crunch time decisions, I say I'm not confident at any level that Brad Ausmus will make the adjustments and the moves needed to get this team to the World Series. Unless you're going to drop a $300 million payroll and you're going to add Chapman, you're going to add big hitters, you're going to just surround him with a team that he can't mess up at all. And I still think there'll be some struggles.
Here's the deal.
So what do you think? Was this a bad team that Brad inherited, or was this a decent team that could have had success with somebody else?
I think it's more the latter than it is that they were just a bad team. They were flawed. They were put together in a poor way by Avila. I think this team has talent, and we kind of discussed it at nauseum over the course of the season. I mean, you've got a guy like Miguel Cabrera. You've got Justin Verlander, who had an outstanding season. You had JD Martinez, who looked great. Ian Kinsler played like vintage Ian Kinsler. You got some great production from a guy like Michael Fulmer, which was unexpected. You sat there and you got some really good production from a guy like Shane Green, who was bounced all around, whether it be in the starting rotation or it be in the bullpen. And you got some really good production from your closer in K-Rod. So I think this team has talent and has enough talent to make it to the playoffs, whether it be as a wild card or winning the AL Central. The bigger issue that I see with this team, and this is going forward, you now have a team that, at least a starting rotation, that will be comprised of Justin Verlander, assuming that he can carry on what he's done this season, and that's the hope. Jordan Zimmerman, who we're all expecting him to come back healthy next season and be able to perform at a high level. And then you've got 3 rookies, and it'll be their second year. Michael Fulmer will probably be either your second or your third starter, depending on what they do with Jordan Zimmerman. And then it's probably going to be Norris and Boyd. And the hope is that those 3 guys can take a step forward, remain healthy, and that's going to give you a lot of production next season. And the hope is that Brad Ausmus has learned how to handle this pitching staff. I'm still not 100% sure he knows what he's doing. I don't know if he has figured it out. And if Jim Leland was in this same situation, the natives would be restless. They would be at his house with stakes ready to burn because they would want him gone. And don't tell me otherwise, because how many times would we take calls on the Tigers and we would have to hear everybody say, Jim Leland doesn't know what he's doing. He's mismanaging this team. I know people don't like Brad Ausmus, but I don't hear the outcry for Brad Ausmus like I used to hear for Jim Leland. And I'm not sure why that is. Is it because Brad Ausmus is a really nice guy? Is he so lovable and cute you just want to pitch his little rosy cheeks? Is that what the deal is? Because if that's what the case is, I'd much rather have the grump who sits there and smokes too much, because at least he knew what the hell he was doing.
So now you look at it from the business side of things. You look at the attendance starting from 2013 till now, it's gone steadily down. Why do you think that is? If you're listening to the podcast and tweet us at Detroit Podcast, let us know. Why is it that the fans have decided that, the attendance is down, they're not going as much to games? I mean, you literally had an opening game series where you had Buck Farmer versus Cleveland, I believe, and nobody showed up. In essence, you had a bunch of empty seats. It's not a good look. And the attendance has dropped. If you look at the numbers from 3 years ago till now, at least 15 to 20%. So it's not even a business decision. Outside of baseball, let's say you just remove the baseball side of it. If I'm a businessman and I'm Mike Ilitch, if I'm still got my wits about me, or I'm Chris Ilitch, I go, whoa, these numbers don't look like they're trending in the right direction. What's the reason? You would have to, at least if anyone's sitting around a table in a meeting, go, I don't think the fans are behind Brad Ausmus. I think we've lost a certain percentage of our fans. And when you lose hope, like I think I'm starting to, you lose hope that this is a World Series caliber team. Maybe now we got to reshift our goals and think, okay, maybe let's see how these young guys develop and can we add a round to support them. But when you start losing hope and you have other options out there, maybe like the Pistons, or you start allocating your funds somewhere else, why would you invest in the Detroit Tigers? I don't think the return or the hope that there's going to be a return is there anymore. And so then I would even say outside of baseball decisions, outside of that, I would say as just a simple business decision, if you let go of Brad Ausmus and you brought in somebody else, then maybe you could rejuvenate the fans and have a strong fan base, because I'm thinking right now a lot of fans that are listening to this, that are looking at the Tigers. I mean, literally, all I did was tweet out an empty stadium last night when the news broke, and literally within 4 minutes, I got 30 no messages saying, hey, I cannot believe Ausmus is coming back. Where's the accountability? What are you telling your fans, that you're going to accept 2 years with payroll that high? You can't accept that. And so I don't even know next year if you're going to average 30,000 fans, unless, again, you get off to a hot start. So I would even say as a business decision, it's not a good look to keep Brad Ausmus. It's not good.
I agree. It just, look, when you have other options available to you, I don't know about you. I enjoy going to the ballpark, watching a game, but I get a much more complete experience at home in my underwear. Do you know what I'm saying? I can sit there and if I want to, if I want to have a Hebrew National, I can go buy a package of 8 of them for, I don't know, what it would cost me for a third of a hot dog. And I can sit there and I can make it in my own kitchen, or I can make it on my own grill, and I can sit there and like I said, lounge around, free balling if I want to. It's a much more complete experience to get it at home than it is to go to the ballpark. I love going to the ballpark, and I think it's a great time. But again, you've gone how many times this year?
I would say 4 times, 5 times.
4 or 5 times. I went once.
Yeah.
One time. And you know how many times I was offered free tickets? Numerous times.
Yep.
And it was just like, no, I'm good. I have other things to do. Down the stretch of the season, there were other things that I'd much rather even be watching than watching the Tigers. On a Monday night, I'd much rather be watching Monday Night Raw. On a Tuesday night, I'd much rather be watching SmackDown. And those are wrestling programs where it's all made up and nothing is real. I'd much rather watch that because it's more entertaining. This product that was put on the field was not entertaining, and that's an issue. Whether it be the manager or it be the general manager, whoever is putting the product on the field and whoever is responsible for putting the pieces in play, you're doing a poor job, and that's why your attendance is down.
Great segue to what we're going to talk about next. Let's turn our attention to Avila in his first season as general manager, because now we have to ask ourselves, what does this ball club need to compete and to take the next step? He made some good additions in terms of Justin Upton. He finally turned it around, and he basically carried you the second half of the year. You had a situation.
Last 40 games. Let's not go too far here. Last 40 games, he got red hot.
Red hot after he had a conversation with David Ortiz. But what he did to try to improve the bullpen just didn't work out. Unfortunately, Mark Lowe was terrible. You might be looking at Pelfrey's contract and Lowe's contract as going, what the hell is going on here? And then we got to see what he's going to do now this offseason. But I would give Avila for his first year a C. Not too bad, not too great either. But this offseason, it's going to be very important to see what he's going to do, and we'll get a sense early on as to what the philosophy is going to be. But I'm starting to think that, if I wrote a book on this time frame, it would be called "Where are the Left-Handed Bats? Where's the bullpen?" I mean, is there nobody out there that can bat left-handed and play in the outfield that could fit on the Detroit Tigers? Because you heard it in the open. Brad Ausmus said, hey, we faced a pitcher that was good against right-handed batters, and we featured a lineup dominated by a bunch of right-handers. You go to that bullpen, and what are we saying again? We got to fix the bullpen. We got to fix the bullpen. Who can we trust? Nobody. K-Rod was a guy that had a solid season, but, he might be slotted down if they bring in a solid A-plus closer. But again, it seems like rebuilding a bullpen is the hardest thing to do in the entire world, and the Tigers organization hasn't been able to do it. Now, this has been a goal for the better part of 5 years. When are they going to rebuild that bullpen? And so Avila's got a huge job ahead of him because, you got to see what the payroll is going to look like. Can this team take a next step if the payroll goes down? I'm not thinking that because a lot of teams that made the postseason had bigger payrolls. But also, teams like Cleveland had some success with lesser payrolls, and there have been clubs to have success. So they're going to have to shift philosophies, but I'm not sure the young guys that they've pinned their hopes on are the right guys. Vito actually made the argument on his show. He wants to move on from Iglesias. He wants to point his attention to McCann and the offensive numbers because you got guys that are solid in one area, but they're not really overall complete great players. You got Jose Iglesias, batting average is terrible. You got James McCann, batting average is terrible. You have Upton, Cameron Maben, JD Martinez in the outfield can mash the hell out of the baseball, but when you look at their defensive stats, they're terrible. So I'm thinking maybe the scouting department needs to kind of overall maybe stop looking at the sexiness of either being a super strong defensive player or being a super strong offensive player and being a more well-rounded ball player that can do a little bit more and not so much where JD can mash the hell out of the baseball, but he can't hit a fucking cutoff man. Or you got James McCann can throw a guy out at second, but when you need him with guys on second and third, his batting average is piss poor. So that's where I think they need to really look at things. And some people are having the talks. Do we need to? And I made the argument. I'm ready. I have no problem, and I've proven to be right. They should have sold at the trade deadline. This organization needs more talent because you had injuries. Who'd you bring up? We were arguing, Tyler Collins versus Steven Moya. Why is this going on? And I said, Steven Moya, why are we having this debate about Steven freaking Moya? You wanted to pin your hopes on bringing a young cat that threw one pitch in Jimenez. Really? You need a more well-rounded...
You wanted to pin your hopes on one pitch.
I think they could have got one game better out of him.
I agree. I think they could have too. But again, I think with him, they're playing the long game. They want him to develop more. They don't want to sit there and ruin his psyche. Again, pitchers are fickle creatures, just like goaltenders in hockey. A little bit weird, a little bit different. But again, speaking of Avila, probably the biggest blunder he made all season long was the Mike Pelfrey contract. Oh. I hated that signing from day one. You could have went out and got a guy like Doug Fister. You remember Too Tall Doug? You could have brought him in, could have put him on the mound, and he would have gave you much better production for the same cost. Again, now you're saddled with Mike Pelfrey's contract for the next season. What are you going to do with him? Because he doesn't deserve a spot on this roster. He can't play. He's not good. Not good. You've got Anibal Sanchez, who you're still on the hook for a couple years. So now you're going to move a guy who's going to be earning $14 to $16 million a season. What are you going to do with him? You got to put him in your bullpen. He's got to be your long relief guy. At the time when they signed that contract, it looked like a great contract. It looked like we discussed it because we thought it was going to be awesome. But he hasn't shown the ability to stay healthy year in and year out. So now what do you do with this guy? You can't put him in your starting rotation. He's a liability. You use him as a long relief. That's the role that I think both of us, as the season went on, wanted him to be used in. So, look, Avila has some decisions to make. He's got to do some things, and he's got to get better at a lot of different things. What I want to see from him is I want to see them address what's going on in their minor league system because it's absolute garbage. I want him to sit there, and if he's going to bring pieces in, again, I need better defensive players. I need defensive players who can hit a baseball. That's what I need. You just talked about it yourself. Look, I love JD Martinez. I think he's great. I think he's got a really nice beard. I think he's got a really high hair. It's awesome. I think he's a good-looking dude. He can sit there. He can play like nobody's business. When he came up after he was injured and he had that one at-bat where he just crushed the baseball, it was great. We thought it was going to be a turning moment for the season. We thought that was where everything was just going to kind of flip upside down and they were going to get on their winning ways and ride off into the sunset and make the playoffs. Didn't happen. All right? Again, he's not necessarily a liability in the outfield, but he's not the most complete defensive player that you have in the outfield either. You need better defense on this team because, the way it's set up, these are all guys who can just mash the baseball. You got to get guys on the pond, and then you got to clear the pond, all right? Having a guy like a Miguel Cabrera, having a guy like a Victor Martinez, having a guy like a JD Martinez is great, but they're the exact same guy. Every single one of them. They're not the swiftest out there. They're not the most defensively responsible players, and all they can really do is they can hit the ball out of the ballpark. And then after that, you got guys like Jose Iglesias, who sometimes hits below the Mendoza line. You got a guy like James McCann, who I think will be better next season if he's not hurt. I think him getting hurt early in the year really sidestepped him and really put him behind the 8 ball. I think he'll be a better player, but again, where's his bat? And everybody talks about how you can kind of tank at catcher. Not on this team. This team, the way it's built, you need to have a good batting average because you got to get on base. The only way this team's going to win is if you get guys on base and you allow the big bats to come through. There are things that have to change with this team from a philosophical standpoint. And whether it be with Avila or whether it be with the next general manager or maybe it's when Mr. I kicks the can, whatever the situation is, there has to be a philosophical change. You can't just keep loading up with a softball lineup, just guys who can mash the ball all over the field. You got to have guys who can play defense. You got to have guys who can run the bases. I mean, honestly, it's baseball. It takes a few different working parts. You can't have all the same cookie-cutter guy to come up there and do the same exact thing.
With that said, you know who'll be the first addition when free agency hits? Edwin Encarnacion,
right?
Jose Bautista,
right?
We'll be like, oh, that's the same guy. We got all guys that can hit home runs. You know, boom or bust, baby. And Jason pointed it out greatly in that when we were winning games, we were scoring 6 or more runs. We were mashing the hell out of the baseball. But then you go into Atlanta needing to win 3 games, and you get shut out by relievers that were unheard of, unknowing. We didn't know what the hell was going on with them, with ERAs north of 7. And you couldn't do nothing. And so that's why you really got to seriously take a look at retooling a little bit and maybe not going with so many guys that are boom or bust kind of players.
Dude, you get 3 hits off a guy like Turan. Come on, seriously. It just atrocious. Horrible. He wasn't even that good of a pitcher. And then you got Brad Ausmus in your sound clip that you played under a whole bunch of F-bombs there where he's like, hey, you know, he's a really good pitcher. We knew he was a good pitcher. Are you smoking crack?
Right.
What are you talking about? He's not. He really wasn't that good of a pitcher.
Well, the interesting point is that there are people that are hopeful. We got to see Fulmer, and he looks like a young up-and-coming stud. We got a chance to see Daniel Norris, and he kind of progressed. And then you've seen Boyd, who had an up-and-down, kind of 2016 season. But you're kind of pinning your hopes that these guys are going to progress in their second year. And there has been a trend where in young baseball players that are pitchers, second season, they tend to struggle a little bit. So pump the brakes a little bit. I'm very hopeful that the starting staff can round into form with those 5. If you go JV, Zimmerman, Daniel Norris, Boyd, Fulmer, that's not bad given the fact that it could be much worse. But can they stay healthy? If Jordan Zimmerman takes another step back, that was a situation where he started off great, but Jordan Zimmerman's going to be counted on to have a bounce back year. So the starters are probably going to be put on the back burner in terms of concern. The concerns are going to be improving the defense in the outfield, really fixing that bullpen, and a little bit more consistency on offense. And that's going to be their job. So I am going to be hopeful. This is not going to be a team, I don't believe, that's going to bottom out and win 70 games. My starting point and my focus is this team anywhere near the caliber that it's going to take to win a World Series? I would say no. Can this be a playoff team in 2017? Sure. Can they win some rounds? Sure. Can they hoist the trophy that I've been desperately waiting for since 1984? I don't think so. Not in the next couple of years. And so with that, I think it could have been done differently when it came down to transitioning from Jim Leland. You could have went with a more experienced manager. You might have even had some more playoff success. You might even be looking at the crescendo being this year.
They basically gave a Corvette to a 15-year-old who had his driver's permit. And we're like, here, figure it out.
And the blessing of
Would you ever do that?
Yeah, and the blessing of doing this podcast is we have it all on tape. We said it from the minute they announced that he was hired. We were like, no. This isn't going to work out. And this
In
year,
one of our blogs, we sat there and I think he was listed as like the 9th best option at the time. Like neither one of us wanted him. No. I mean, all he did was he like coached Team Israel to an 0-3 record in the world baseball, whatever it was.
And we all said at the beginning of this year, world wild card at best. At best, that's not how you can run an organization when you're dropping $200 million. The goal should have been the World Series, and to fall short of that, unfortunately, in big time sports, when you have big time expectations, that the hammer should have been hitting the nail, and Brad Ausmus should not have been given the option to come back. But unfortunately, that's the case. I'm kind of in that they've lost me a little bit, and they've my passion. But I'm a sports guy. I'm a big Detroit sports fan, so I'll peek in. But I'm just losing a little bit of hope that the Tigers know what they're doing. That's just where I sit.
Look, headed into next season, there's a couple things that you have to check off a list. You need to make that bullpen better. It's got to be rock solid. Whether that means going out and spending some money on Aroldis Chapman, I don't know if I would be so opposed to 3 years, anywhere between $15 to $18 million for that guy, because he can light it up. All right, you can move K-Rod to your setup. So then I feel really good about your 8th and your 9th inning. You got Shane Green, who's coming along nicely. I'm high on him. I think I'm higher on him than you are. He could be your 7th inning guy if you need. So I like 7, 8, 9 right there, okay? Then you can kind of fill it out with your situational lefty. You can fill it out with your situational righty. What I think this team needs in its batting lineup is it needs a left-handed bat that can consistently get on base, make contact.
Is there one out there?
I don't know. I'd have to sit there and look at what's going to be available at free agency. But again, a left-handed bat who's consistent and can get on base, and guys who can run the bases. I mean, how many times do we have to watch Ian Kinsler get thrown out at first, get tossed out at second because he doesn't know what he's doing on the base path? And Ian Kinsler was a bright spot on this team. So it sucks to say that about him, but you got a guy like Jose Iglesias. He should be a lot quicker than what he shows out there on the base path. Whether it's just he's not sitting there and he's not breaking when he's supposed to, or whether he's misreading the timing of the pitcher, whatever it is. You've got guys on this team who should be a lot better at doing the fundamentals. And that's what I think a lot of the issues with this team come down to. It's just fundamentals, and they don't do a lot of that correctly. I think your starting rotation is going to be fine. I think that's a bright spot on this team. A guy like a Michael Fulmer, a Daniel Norris, a Matt Boyd. If Matt Boyd's your 5th starter going into the year, I think we're going to be okay with that. I think that'll be fine. He's a plus 5th starter. Jordan Zimmerman's got to come back healthy, and if Verlander can give you numbers like he gave you this season, you're going to be okay as well. You got to worry about when does the bottom fall out on a guy like a Victor Martinez, or has it already? Because he's the dude's almost 40. If he's not already 40, I'm not 100% sure how old he is. I mean, let me double check this real quick for you. But I mean, how much longer can he keep going? Honestly, he is old. He's old. I mean, like, he can't even get around the base path at this point. And that's a big issue for this team. It's not going to be helpful for them. So I don't understand it. I mean, he's 37. So, I mean, he's creeping up there close to 40 at this point. I mean, how much more time does he have left? Because we both know he has nothing left in his knees. It's basically bone on bone. And every time you turn around, it's an ACL. I don't know how many times you can redo that ACL. At some point, you just take a cadaver ligament and throw it in there and call it a day. It's not good. There are things that have to change with this team. There are things that have to be done differently going forward. And again, like I said, it's a philosophical mindset that they have to wrap their brains around. And if Avila doesn't do it, this team is destined to give you what you got this season. We'll get close, but we'll falter at the end. And that's not good enough.
Let's turn our attention to the disastrous weekend that was for the Detroit Lions. I mean, as bad as
a little decorum here.
Yeah, as bad as Brad Ausmus was in 2016, you're starting to see that Jim Caldwell's not the guy. Everybody knows it. Everybody's kind of off the bandwagon. 1 month into the season, 1-3, and now you got Philadelphia coming in undefeated, and it's just unacceptable. You got people looking at the Detroit Lions cross-eyed, wondering, what on earth are you doing out there versus Chicago? That was a team you should have thumped by at least 20 points. We got the Bears score right in terms of 17, but we all thought the Lions were going to show up offensively and run a train on them. They didn't show up at all. And whether that's the lack of motivation, whether, Jim Caldwell has lost this locker room, the situation in the Lions is at a boiling point. You got fans ready to revolt, I think, and you got fans that are wondering, how on earth does Jim Caldwell get on that plane to come home to Detroit after that performance? You heard in the open, undisciplined, penalties. You got a player looking the other way when a play is still going on. You got miscommunication between arguably your number now 3 wide receiver, I guess, if Andre Roberts is now ranked higher on the depth chart than Golden Tate. Your number 3 receiver is not on page with the quarterback. And then you come out and you tell the media, when everyone knew you benched Golden Tate because of his mistake, that you wanted to give Andre Roberts more touches. Why, if that was the case, would you even say that? Because that's really the ultimate diss to Golden Tate, that Golden can't even beat out Andre Roberts.
You sound like a complete boob if you say something like that. You sound like an idiot.
You were mad.
Because honestly, you sound stupid. You do. Because Golden Tate, it's no secret, Golden Tate is one of the best receivers on this team. He was one of the best receivers when Calvin Johnson was here. There was Batman and there was Robin. And sometimes you could have made the argument that Golden Tate was Batman and not Robin. And now you're going to sit there and you're going to tell me that Andre Roberts deserves more touches than that guy? Who are you trying to fool here? You're an absolute buffoon. Absolute buffoon. For that statement alone, Jim Caldwell should have been fired. Should have been fired. As I was watching this game, I was like, I'm not even mad. I'm not even upset. Because it's just comical to me that you go into Chicago and you face a Bears team that is running Brian Hoyer, a backup quarterback on what is 3rd or his 4th team. You're playing him, and you're playing a depleted Bears team that is on, I think, their 4th or their 5th running back, depending on which roster you're looking at and which depth chart you've got in front of you that day. And you still can't stop them. You still can't do anything. You've got a backup quarterback and you've got a number 5 running back sitting there running a train on you. And a guy like Matt Stafford, your number 1 overall pick, the guy who Bob Cooter was supposed to have fixed, the be-all, end-all, the guy who you're about to give $27 million a season to. And what's he doing? He's out there throwing interceptions. Sure as hell don't look fixed to me. Doesn't look right to me at all. And then you got him sitting there effing Golden Tate up one way and effing him down the other. And then you've got Jim Caldwell sitting there gonna, hey, you know what? Go sit on the bench. Go sit on the bench. And, Andre Roberts needs more touches. Get the hell out of here. Get out of here. You're an idiot. You're an absolute buffoon. I am so tired of Jim Caldwell. I'm tired of the way he treats the media after they sit there and they lose games. I'm tired of that stupid clown look on his face when he's sitting there and he's just got glazed over eyes. I'm tired of the play calls. I'm tired of there is nobody is responsible for anything on this team, whether it be a defensive coordinator or an offensive coordinator, whether it be your quarterback, whether it be your defensive back. Nobody takes responsibility. You've got Eric Ebron out there basically walking away from a play because he doesn't believe Theo Riddick is good enough to get the job done. Theo Riddick's out there busting his ass, and he's got 5 guys surrounding him, and he's basically doing the hokey pokey and turning himself all around. And Eric Ebron's just sitting there because he blew a blocking assignment again and just walking away.
You know, I was hoping that in 2016 we wouldn't have too many same old Lion performances, but that was one of them, 1-3. And most people believe that if you made a move that you could maybe salvage whatever the hell's going to go on in 2016 the rest of the way. But it seems like, you know, Bob Quinn's going to take the traditional approach and just probably wait at minimum until the halfway point. If they start off the year 1-7 before the bye week, or they don't have any more victories and they're playing, if they have too many more performances like this, then Jim Caldwell will be let go.
It'll be year number 2 of the same exact thing.
But I'm thinking that by
Groundhog's
the end of the
Day
year,
all over again.
By the end of the season, Jim Caldwell is going to be replaced. I think you get a free year if you're Bob Quinn. You know that. You're observing everything. But when you look at it, yeah, this team, and Jim Caldwell said it, it's about results, and the results have been poor. And whatever the reasons are, whatever the strategy that the organization came up with for the Bears was absolutely terrible, where Brian Hoyer outshines Matthew Stafford. Are you serious right now?
Just cuts him up. Doesn't even outshine him, cuts him up. The only reason this game was close was because you had a special teams touchdown. Yeah. Insane. Absolutely insane. You had 2 field goals offensively. That was all you were able to muster against an awful Bears team.
The Bears are awful, bro. You saw that. They basically they wanted the Lions to win. They made so many mistakes. They're a team that's, oh my gosh, potentially could win 3 to 5 games all year. That's the team that you couldn't go to Soldier Field and destroy.
Who wins more games this year, the Bears or the Lions?
I would say the Lions.
You think so?
The Bears,
because what I've been seeing lately, I don't know. Maybe the Bears will figure it out. Maybe Brian Hoyer's the second coming of Christ. He sure as hell looks a lot better than Jay Cutler and his stupid insulin pump.
Well, news came out, of course, because Kevin White's on my other fantasy team. He's on IR now. So
that's all right. You know who they got?
Who they got?
They got Eddie Royal. That guy cut you up for 111 and a TD.
Well,
do you remember what Eddie Royal was when he was in San Diego? He was like a special teams player, and every now and then he would touch the ball.
Listen,
and then he'd go sit on the bench for 3 quarters. Then he'd come out and he'd touch the ball one more time. He'd basically get 4 targets, 2 receptions, 20 yards, and occasionally he would pop for a touchdown. In Chicago, he's better than Alshon Jeffries. Are you serious? Come on.
I don't even know what
against his Lions team.
I don't even know what to expect versus the undefeated Eagles. Is Carson Wentz going to come to Detroit and roll us?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I really wish we had Vinny Stubbs in the studio right now. He would tell us about how Carson Wentz is the second coming of Jesus himself and how he walks on water and how when he shows up, he's going to sit there and he's just going to jail sex the Lions. Expect him to throw 4 touchdowns this weekend. Expect it. I'm calling it right now. He's going to throw 4 TDs. He'll maybe throw 1 interception. It'll be his first interception on the season, I believe. He's going to throw 4 touchdowns. He's going to go for 320 some odd yards. Matt Stafford will throw 2 touchdowns if he's lucky. And we're just going to get housed by the Eagles.
Oh.
Count it. Count it. Ryan Matthews has a bum ankle. Bum. When I say bum, it's like the dude who was digging through my garbage after my basement flooded. A bum ankle. That's what he's got. All right? And that guy is about to stroke you for 120 yards and a TD. Watch it.
Man.
This Sunday.
It's tough, man. With the Tigers and the Lions combined with the awful effort by Michigan State at Indiana, it's tough right now to be a Detroit sports guy. But, you do have a team that's on the rise and talking about Michigan football, there is some things to be hopeful for. But in terms of championship success, in terms of performances, the Lions and Tigers are tough, man. So we got to shift our attentions to college football. We got to shift our attentions to other things like the Pistons and Wings, and we'll talk about them later in this podcast. But yeah, if you keep focusing on the Lions and spend too much time looking at the Lions and Tigers, your head's going to pop off because it's just so maddening and frustrating that I think that's it. We're just going to cut it off with the Lions at that. That is it. It was an abysmal performance, erase the tape, and they have to come out and perform much better versus the Eagles. And you got 3 games at home. You got to win them all. Just go out there by any means necessary, win them all, get to 4-3, and let's go from there. All right, cuz, let's take a quick timeout. We're going to come back and play a round of Jock Jams, look at other news and notes in the world of Detroit sports and nationally. Doc and Jock, episode 165 on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Guys, it's more refreshing and cooler than that ice-cold beer while you sit there and mow the lawn. Definitely not you if you're running around in this heat, in that office, wearing that stuffy, smelly, pit-stained dress shirt that's wrinkled to the high heavens. Don't worry now. Uncle Jock's got you covered, or should I say Larry Hunt's got you covered, with their moisture-wicking, anti-odor, breathable 4-way stretch 100% cotton dress shirt that will keep you cool like the other side of the pillow. Look, guys, I've been wearing mine for some time now, and I absolutely love them. They keep me cool, dry, fresh-looking all day long, so I can handle some business during the day and then head out and tear up the night while still looking fresh and clean. On top of it, this is probably the best part. The shirt is made, designed, and crafted by Detroiters in Detroit. See all the incredible styles Lawrence Hunt has to offer? Head over to lawrencehuntfashion.com. That's lawrencehuntfashion.com. And if you use promo code DSP, guess what? We'll save you 20% off your order. That's right, 20%. If you don't believe me, listen to Detroit Tigers catcher James McCann.
I'm a jeans and boots kind of guy, and taking my wife out to eat, I love putting on my Lawrence Hunt dress shirt. The way they stretch, the way they feel, they move with my body just like a t-shirt would. I know that I'm wearing a dress shirt, but it really doesn't feel like it.
That's lawrencehuntfashion.com.
Are you looking for team apparel for your high school, your club sports team, or corporation? Look no further than Top Cat Sales, located on the east side of Main Street in downtown Royal Oak, between 11 and 12 Mile. Through founder and former University of Michigan QB John Wangler's leadership, Top Cat Sales has developed a tradition of selling and distributing custom Adidas team apparel with the highest quality and best service. Get your organization, school, or club team all in with Adidas today by going to TopCatTeamSales.com. That's TopCatTeamSales.com. Also, follow Top Cat on Twitter at Team Top Cat. All right. Yes, sir. Welcome back. Episode 165 rolling along. No crazy clowns anywhere near this studio, I believe, because if I saw one, I think I might jump out the window and freak out. But what do you think about this whole crazy clown thing? Is this like a sign of the times that I think we're becoming a very, mentally unstable society? Because if that's what's going viral, around Halloween is a bunch of crazy clowns. Like, I really feel bad for real clowns. They're just trying to go out there, make their $100 for a kid's party. And people are like, let's just take videos of clowns. And then the things with going on with the schools over there in the Midwest, it's pretty crazy. Crazy clowns are making a comeback, and the videos are going viral. What the hell?
I'm terrified of clowns.
Are you really?
I'm terrified of clowns. Like when I was a kid, my mom, there was like some artist who did something with like a white face clown, scared the crap out of me as a child. They were all over the house. I was, honestly, clowns freak me out. Like, I hated going to the circus because there were always clowns there. I did not like it. It's one of those things that just scares the bejesus out of me. So if I was walking down the street and I seen some creepy clown coming at me, you better believe I'm running the other way.
No doubt. Ugh, what a weird story. All right, this is what we call Jock Jams. Doc has several great questions lined up for the Jock, and he's ready to bring the noise in what we call Jock Jams. All right, sir, kicking off Jock Jams with the NFL, a lot of people are taking notice that the ratings across the board for the NFL in terms of the big-time games, Sunday Night Football, Monday Night Football, Thursday Night Football, the ratings are down significantly, and people are pontificating regarding whether it's Donald Trump, is it the election season, is it the fact that there's been this nationwide protest by Colin Kaepernick. A lot of people are also looking at, well, some of these games have been atrocious. What are you attributing the low ratings for the NFL to the start in the 2016 season?
I think it's oversaturation. You've got Thursday Night Football, that's followed up by Sunday Football, followed up by Monday Football. And let's be honest, the Monday night games haven't been good in probably about 4 or 5 years. They've been an absolute dumpster fire, just absolute horrible games. They're usually a blowout by the time you get to halftime. And the teams that are close, honestly, it's like three-legged cats trying to bury turds on frozen ponds. It's just hard to watch. Thursday Night Football's not much better. Every now and then you'll get an interesting matchup, but again, short turnaround. What are you expecting to get out of these games? I mean, you got players that are sitting there limping into the game because they're hurt from the week prior because they've got such a short and abbreviated schedule to either A, get healthy, or B, digest the new playbook. So the games aren't any good on Thursday either. Generally, Sunday Night Football, those are some solid quality games. I find those to be probably the most entertaining. But again, if I just sat there and I watched my Lions get housed, how much more football do I really want to watch? I really want to put my foot through a TV screen at this point. So I just think it's oversaturation. I mean, I love football as much as any other red-blooded American does. You have football on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and then in the middle of the week, you've got all your fantasy stuff going on. You got your waiver wire for fantasy, and then I think probably the only day you have off might be a Wednesday. And if you got a Wednesday off, you're probably tinkering with your fantasy team, looking to see who dropped what. So, I mean, look, 7 days a week of football in some sort, in some semblance of it, whether it be college, pro, fantasy, and then if you got high school kids playing, I mean, dude, that's a lot of football. It's a lot. I just think it's oversaturation. I think the Thursday games make it rough and make it tough, and I think the Monday games are just a very difficult watch. And I think those two things right there lead to people sitting there and just being like, what are we doing? We've got other things to do. Let's watch something else. I don't know. I'm a huge fan of NCIS Los Angeles. I much rather watch that than some of the games that are going on Sunday night. And I think those are the more premier games out of those three, whether it be Thursday or Monday or Sunday night games.
Yeah, myself on Monday nights, I'm watching WWE Raw, or I'm watching movies, or I'm watching other type things. Yeah, for me right now, I'm just peeking in at the Lions. And I think a lot of people are also watching the Red Zone, where they're not maybe watching complete games, where they're just watching highlight packages here and there.
That's another thing. You got Red Zone, you've got DirecTV's Football Pass, where you get every single game. Again, it's just every place you turn around, it's just nothing but football, football, football. And then in the off season, even there really is no off season for the National Football League, because once your football season is over, you basically get a week there where there's not a whole lot going on, but they stay in the news somehow. Roger Goodell's always doing something. I think a lot of people have a lot of issues with Roger Goodell. I know myself, I can't stand the guy. I think he's a jerk. I think he's horrible for the league. I think he's awful for the game. So I wish he would just go somewhere. All right, now you've got that transitions into the Underwear Olympics, which I love. And then from that transitions into the draft. And then from the draft, it transitions into OTAs. And then you're right back at the regular season because now you got preseason games that, there's never a break. You never get a little bit of time where you're like, man, I yearn for football again. Like I can't wait for hockey season. I know the Wings are going to be a disaster, but I can't wait to watch it unfold. I want to see hot garbage cans on fire on ice skates just rolling around the Joe. I can't wait for it.
All right, so to add to the weekend misery, I'm watching Michigan State, Indiana, and I would think that, okay, Michigan State's going to go on the road and just house a team. No. They start off great up until 4 minutes left in the third quarter. They're playing pretty decently. All of a sudden, here comes Indiana, and Michigan State's forced to come back in the fourth quarter, and they end up, tying the game up, going into overtime, where they botch it royally in terms of their first possession. They botch it when Indiana, basically, their kicking situation is abysmal. You get a stupid-ass penalty, and you give them another opportunity to kick the game-winning field goal. Michigan State sitting at 2-2. Their season now is over. A lot of goals that they thought that they could achieve are now in the distant memory. And I'm left sitting here going, well, it was a nice run, and this transitional year happened within the first month. We're now in full transition. What are your thoughts on Michigan State and where they're at this far into the 2016 college football season?
Let's start with what took place on Saturday. The Indiana game was a trap game. This is a team that Michigan State is expected to beat. Michigan State should have beat. You sit there, you go into Indiana, and you lose. You lose in overtime, and you lose in a very disgruntling way. Like you said, having the lead and then letting it slip away at the later halves of the third quarter and the fourth quarter, and then you blow it in overtime. Fast forward to this Saturday, you're going to be taking on a BYU team who will probably beat you. Let's be honest. Will probably beat you. Your best defender has to sit out the first half, all right? This season is in full teardown mode right now. It is an absolute dumpster fire. The only good thing is, the only solace that you might have here is that you can check out. It's early enough in the season to where your heart doesn't have to get broken anymore. You can check out. You don't have to watch this mess anymore. You can just go and sit on your couch. You can go play with your kids. You can go do whatever the hell you want to do. You don't have to watch this crap anymore because you sure as hell ain't beating Michigan on the 29th. You sure as hell ain't beating Ohio State when you face them. There's no way. Expect those two games to just get rolled up on you. BYU, I'm anticipating a loss there. This looks like it's going to be a 7-5 season, maybe a 6-6 season, and you'll be lucky if you get a bowl game out of it. And I know when all this kind of unfolded on Saturday night, we had people wanting to fire D'Antonio. He's not the reason for this team being in disarray right now. He really isn't. He's a good coach. You got a great coach there. He's outstanding. The real issue is what's going on with your offensive coordinator, because it doesn't look like he has a damn clue how to run this team. This team has been built and will continue to be built on running the football and smashing your face in with the football through the run game, and then sitting there and scoring big plays with throwing the ball. You've got a quarterback who, let's be honest, he's not what you're used to having. He's not a Kirk Cousins. He's not a Brian Hoyer. He's not a Connor Cook. You know what I'm saying? He's not that next level guy. He is a stopgap. And you put him in a spot where he probably isn't going to succeed because he's got to throw the ball so damn much. That's not good for this team. It's not helping this team. You've got great running backs. You generally have a very good offensive line. I think this is a transition year for your offensive line. You need to get back to running the ball more. You need to control the ball more. You need to take some of this out of Tyler O'Connor's hands and let this run game do what it normally does. Your offensive coordinator is blowing games for you. That then in turn puts your defense in a bad spot. And honestly, Malik McDowell is your best defensive player. So without him on the field the first half of Saturday's game, good luck.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a rough season. Honestly, it's going to be a bad season for you guys. And I was hoping that Michigan State would be good enough for the 29th to when you roll in, or when Michigan rolls in.
It'll help, yep.
Michigan would just destroy you, and it would be great, and it'd make me so happy. Now,
the lust is off.
You guys have taken this away from me. I don't get to sit there and I don't get to beat my chest and be proud like you were last year when, trouble with the snap and all that jazz. And then the next 3.5 hours in 4 days or whatever it was where you sat there and you trolled me. I don't get that anymore because I think it's a foregone conclusion that Michigan's going to wipe the floor with Michigan State. Michigan State's going to get their teeth punched in by Ohio State. And you'll be lucky if you can sit there, win 6 or 7 games this season.
Well, speaking of history, a lot of people now have looked at the catch that Jordan Lewis made, and I'm starting to rank it in terms of all-time great catches, in terms of, wow, that guy flew through the air, he caught it one-handed, should he have knocked it down, should he have, done something different with that play? But I was actually in attendance 1997, Michigan State, Michigan, at Spartan Stadium.
You got to see Chuck do what Chuck did?
Oh, man. I was in the student section, and so it was going towards our right from the student section, and Charles Woodson goes up, makes the catch, tries to get down, and in terms of my understanding of it is that he had to tiptoe barely to get his foot down, and it was a great catch, and everyone was like, whoa. It was an oh my gosh moment. You really felt like you saw something. But now we're in 2016, and Jordan Lewis made a great catch. So what's your thoughts on the debate between what was the better catch? Jordan Lewis skying for the one-handed interception, or Charles Woodson at Spartan Stadium in the Michigan State game making an all-time great catch?
Depending on how this season goes, Jordan Lewis's catch may go on to live in infamy. All right. You have to remember what happened with Charles Woodson and his interception. He basically jumped 12 and a half feet in the air in a space of probably 3 feet. It was almost like he came out of nowhere, leaped up, grabbed the ball, and then had to hurry up and get back down to make that interception because it was mere inches, actually I say centimeters, from his toes and the white line. He makes the interception, gets his feet down, goes out of bounds. It was a huge play. It was monumental. It was one of those plays that you hearken back to with Charles Woodson. It's one of those plays, he had about 3 or 4 that season that led to him winning the Heisman. And it's one of those flashpoint moments where you're like, man, he's going to be a great, great player. And he sure as hell was. Now, Jordan Lewis's was insane because if you go back and you watch that play, he jumped too early.
Yeah.
He leapt way too early, and there's a moment there where he's just gliding through the air. It's almost like he grew wings and started to fly, and he's just sitting there coasting through the air, and next thing you know, he sees the ball, and he just throws one mitt up, and he grabs it and comes down with it, and through the whole thing, just controls it all with one of his massive hands. If Michigan can go on to do something special this season, that play right there will live on in infamy. Whether one's better than the other, I think time will tell. I think it's a little bit too early right now because Jordan Lewis's play was absolutely incredible. And I kind of want to give the nod to Lewis because, like I said, he leapt too early. He jumped too soon. And when he jumped, he had to somehow slow his body down because it honestly, if you go back and you watch it, I've watched it like 7 times. You go back and you watch it, it's like he's just coasting through the air. Like, I don't know, he's on a cloud or something. I don't know. If you watch Dragon Ball Z, he's on a Nimbus cloud, and he's just floating through the air. It was amazing. And he comes down with it all in one hand. So, I mean, 2 great plays. I want to give the nod a little bit to Lewis because of the way he was able to control his body. Not saying that Charles Woodson didn't. If Michigan can go on to do something great, this play right here will live on forever.
Okay, so as we sit, Michigan is 2-0 in the Big Ten, 5-0 overall, and people are starting to raise their expectations, knowing that maybe, just maybe, we can focus a little bit on the Michigan defense and that unit with Jordan Lewis and Jabril Peppers. Now you're talking about being in some elite company, maybe being able to knock off an Ohio State, maybe getting to the college football playoff, because remember, defense wins championships, and if you can't score on Michigan, all they got to do is score 14 and give up 7. You can do some things with that defense. And evaluating Michigan, and you were there at the Big House observing, the game and their performance versus Wisconsin. No pushover. They were coming off a solid win versus Michigan State. How are you viewing the Michigan football team, and what adjustments might they need to make, or what do they need to get better at as a football team in order to maybe take that next step as early as this year in terms of maybe competing with Alabama, Ohio State, and the big dogs?
First off, the game against Wisconsin was absolutely boring. It was a brutal watch. It was hard to be there. Yeah, I was cold. I don't know. It was boring. It was a very boring game. All right, that being said, the things that Michigan has to work on to compete with a team like Ohio State, Alabama, and sit there and compete for a national championship, you haven't seen one game this season where they've put it all together, whether it be with special teams, the defense, or the offense. It seems like one of those has a breakdown in each and every game thus far this season. Defense played great against Wisconsin. Defense was the reason you won that game. Offense looked absolutely putrid. The kicking game was atrocious. You're sitting there flipping kickers as the game's going on. So it's brutal. You've got a team like Alabama that knows what its identity is. I don't think Michigan's figured out what its identity is yet. Ohio State's the same way. And Ohio State's gifted with a ton of athletes on both sides of the ball. I think Michigan is building to that. They have to still come up with their identity, and they've got to be able to sit there and impose their will, whether it be on the offensive side of the ball, the defensive side of the ball, or special teams making magical plays. They have to sit there and they have to put together a complete game and exert what they're going to be. We still don't know yet, and that's kind of scary because now we're going into game 6 of the season, and we're still not sure, is this more of an offensive team, more of a defensive team? Is this a team that's going to have to rely heavily on its special teams? I don't think it's going to have to rely heavily on its special teams. I think its special teams are great, and it's going to help flip the field position. But I think right now, looking at this team, it's going to be a defensive team that's going to need some timely plays from its offense in order to win games. And I don't necessarily like that. I like the fact that it's a defensive team, but I need more of a complete game from this offense. I can't see this offense get pushed around like it has through 5 games so far.
All right, let's look ahead to this upcoming weekend. Hit me with what's on the schedule. What should I sit on my ass and watch? Where can I watch it? I'm very interested to peek into other games as well across the college football landscape. Hit me up with what's on tap this weekend in college football.
Absolutely. You got Texas versus Oklahoma. That's going to be on Fox Sports 1. Oklahoma's ranked 20th. Texas, can they get out of their own way? They just demoted their defensive coordinator. What's going to happen with Charlie Strong? There's a little bit of a whirlwind going on there, especially after a huge win over Notre Dame. LSU, Florida, that's a 12 o'clock game on ESPN. That'll be interesting. Florida's ranked 18th. What is LSU going to do? Ed Orgeron's taken over after Les Miles been fired. How do they respond? What is this team going to look like going forward? What else do we have? We've got an ACC matchup. I'm not huge on ACC games, but you've got number 25 Virginia Tech taking on number 17 North Carolina. That's a 3:30 start. That'll be on whatever channel is showing your ACC matchup this week. On CBS at 3:30, this is the game that probably everybody's going to be watching. It'll be Tennessee versus Texas A&M. Number 9 Tennessee rolls in against number 8 Texas A&M. Tennessee last week had a huge last-second play against Georgia to eke out the W. Also going on at 3:30, you've got Michigan State probably losing to BYU, so good luck with all of that. We also have another SEC matchup, number 1 Alabama taking on number 16 Arkansas. As Les Miles once said, that's a 7 o'clock game on ESPN. Also, Michigan's rolling out to Rutgers. I expect them to jail sex Rutgers and to sit there and pound them into submission. That game's at 7 o'clock on ESPN2. You also have Florida State, number 23. They're having a very disappointing season against a number 10 ranked Miami team. That's going to be on your ABC network. That's going on at 8 o'clock. So you got quite a few games to kind of pick and choose from. I think probably the biggest Debbie Downer is going to be that Michigan State game. And sorry to tell you that, bro, but that's just kind of what it's looking like right now.
Good stuff. Always a great round of Jock Jams. I know you prepare very well. You always bring the noise. And Jock Jams was awesome. Thanks for the insights. Let's take our final timeout, come back, and some news was made earlier today regarding our Pistons. And definitely we're going to talk about the Red Wings as well to round out episode 165. Stay with us on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
DocNJock here for Fanatic U. If you're looking for some sweet sports swag and you love your Detroit teams, and I mean you really love your Detroit teams, you got to check out fanaticu.com and get the coolest gear out there and rock your Red Wing shirt, rock your Lions shirt, rock your Piston apparel. Wear it till the wheels fall off. Michigan State, you know what? They got it too. Check out Fanatic U. They have 6 locations all over Metro Detroit. Check them out, fanaticu.com.
Thank you, everybody, for sticking around and hitting that download button. We greatly appreciate everybody that listens to the Detroit Sports Podcast. Our weekly shows have been awesome. The numbers have been steadily increasing. Our guy, Brandon Justice, went off on Twitter this last weekend, got his tweet regarding Michigan defense quite possibly being the best in the nation, was retweeted by several of the Michigan players. Comments from Jabril Peppers, Jordan Lewis, and the man himself had our guy on his page with whatever you believe is to be his follower number. On Jim Harbaugh's page, there was Brandon Justice from the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. I'm like, yes, this little virus is growing more and more. And what I like about youthful guys like Brandon and Vito is they just bring it. And if you're into Michigan recruiting, It was very nice to sit and enjoy the conversation that Brandon had with a future Michigan recruit. And I didn't know that when recruits have visits, they employ other recruits that have already committed to kind of stand with them at the games and have conversations, and also to also build the recruitment and to say, hey, this is what I've done, I've recruited. And so to hear that insight from a future Michigan recruit on these airwaves, it was awesome. And a guy like Brandon Justice is doing great things for us. He's his show, The Justice Report, airs every Saturday, and that's a guy that a lot of people are taking note of, is that he is in tune strongly, probably one of the best, one or two people that are in touch with Michigan recruiting at a young age. The dude is on fire, and he knows how to use social media, and his writing skills are really developing, and it's a good dude. It's a good show. The Justice Report, dedicated to all things Michigan on these DSP airwaves, man. Good stuff. All right, so everyone's a little bit excited about the Wings and the Pistons, not maybe having serious expectations of championship success, but whenever, fall comes around, there's the new expectation for a new season, new lines developing for the Red Wings, new storylines, looking at how they're going to utilize, the younger players and the mix of veterans that they have. You look at the Pistons, they have some expectations to maybe be a higher ranked seed, 4 or 5 in the East, and maybe to do some things. But like always, once the momentum train gets going, it gets halted. News surfaced on Wednesday that the Pistons might be on the market for a point guard. And people speculate, well, wait a minute. You don't go out and look on the market for a point guard if your guy, Reggie Jackson, is going to be out for like 10 days. So lots of speculation regarding what the hell's wrong with Reggie Jackson. And if he's out for a significant period of time, you go, uh-oh. It's not like there's great point guards just hanging off of trees that you can just go out there and say, okay, drop us 20 and 15 assists every night. So that news to me signifies that Reggie Jackson might be having or might have experienced a significant injury that we got to be worried about. So that makes me a little bit worried, and we'll get some more information as it comes out. But that really upsets me. And when you look at the Red Wings, in my opinion, I'm excited to see at the start to the new season. I was excited like everybody else when they said, okay, in some of these preseason games, we're going to roll out a line with Larkin, Mantha, Athanasiou. Whoa, that's a significant line there. That's no joke. But then you go, okay, it's a youthful team. It's a team that still has Mrazek and Howard, and how that dynamic is going to play out. You still have an inexperienced head coach, and you've had a team that just hasn't had playoff success in the last few years. So your general manager came out and said, hey, have lower expectations and we'll try to over-deliver. So I think that's the attitude I've taken. They've played pretty solidly in the preseason. I like the fact that they're obviously, because of some injuries to Zetterberg and some of the veterans, I like the fact that some of the youthful guys are getting in there, putting up some points, and we're going to see once the season starts what this Red Wing team can do. I expect them to make the postseason, to continue that playoff streak. But again, right now, my vision and focus is locked on where are you compared to the rest of the league in terms of championship, Stanley Cup success. And they're not there, but I'm going to appreciate the process, as Anthony Wright from Michigan, former Michigan athlete, kind of said that, hey, sometimes you just have to kind of be patient and enjoy the process. And I think that's probably the best way I can summarize what my thoughts are with the Pistons and Red Wings, is I'm going to sit back and I'm going to enjoy the process. I think they're going to take a step forward. Maybe the ceiling for the Red Wings, in my opinion, is second round. Same thing for the Pistons. Get to the postseason, maybe win a round. I'm going to sit back, and my attitude is going to be enjoy the process, see how these young cats develop, because that's the mindset that I'm in.
The issue with Reggie Jackson is he's dealing with some knee tendonitis. It came out that he's been dealing with the knee tendonitis through most of his career, which draws a huge red flag for me, because he just inked a huge deal with this team, and he is supposed to be your leader, whether it be on the floor or in that clubhouse. So I've got some issues there. I've got some concerns. It makes me a little bit nervous. They're going to have to rest him. During the season, expect this to flare up again. Expect
this
him to be,
is bad.
Exactly. Expect him to be getting cortisone shots in the knee, and expect him to sit there and be benched at certain points to sit there and try to rest this. Now, I think Scottie Pippen ended up dealing with something like this later on in his career as well, where the knee would just hurt so damn bad, you can't go out there, you can't run, you can't jump on it, you can't move, and it almost immobilizes you and cripples you. So Reggie Jackson's going to be sidelined for a bit. They're exploring the market, like you said, for a point guard. I don't know what the hell's out there at this point. There's not a whole lot, because they're now into training camp, and anybody who was good or worth a damn's already been picked up. So you got to kind of look at what you got in your developmental league. You got to look at some of your signings that you made. I mean, you got Ray McCallum that you brought in here, Detroit native. You got Ish Smith, who maybe might be able to sit there and facilitate some time and be able to take on a huge, larger load and kind of relieve some of that strain from Reggie Jackson. If I'm looking right now at this roster, the one guy who's probably going to help out the most will be Ish Smith. He'll probably take the bulk of whatever Reggie Jackson was going to get playtime-wise, and he's going to be the one who's going to be the facilitator until Reggie's ready to come back at 100%. As far as your wings go, I'm not expecting a lot. You got to realize what you got going on with this team. It's
transition,
to say the least. It's a lot of the old hat that you had last year mixing with some of the new. And the big question is, do we get to see Mantha? Does Mantha get to finally come up? Does he get a role? Does he play? Because if I remember correctly, Anthony Mantha was called up for a couple games last season before Ken Holland sat there and buried him, and before his head coach buried him. And when he was out there, he was helping score goals. He was helping that power play get back on track. Because if you remember, before Anthony Mantha came up, that power play was abysmal. Anthony Mantha steps on the ice. I think it was 3 games, 3 power play goals. Really got things kind of cooking there. And next thing you know, he gets sent back to Grand Rapids because he's not a good enough two-way player. My thought process is you brought in Franz Nielsen. Franz Nielsen's supposed to be your two-way forward. He's supposed to be a good defensive forward. He's going to sit there, a back check. He's supposed to fill that role that Pavel Datsyuk is supposed to play. You put Anthony Mantha with him. You let Franz Nielsen kind of coach him along a little bit and alleviate some of that defensive burden that he's going to leave for you, and hope to get some good goal-scoring production from him. The guy's a goal scorer. That's what he does. Much like Alex Ovechkin. You don't ever hear anybody bitching about Alex Ovechkin, do you? You know why? Because the guy puts up points. He scores goals in bunches. And that's kind of what Anthony Mantha is supposed to be. Nobody really knows because in Detroit, we like all of our fruit to be overly ripe. And then once it's done being overly ripe, it starts growing mold, and we don't know what the hell to do with it because we wasted all these years in Grand Rapids. So, look, expect the Wings to be semi-competitive. Expect it to be another year of struggles. Maybe 7, maybe 8, eke into the playoffs. But I'm assuming they'll probably be closer to 9. As far as your Pistons go, I'm expecting them to be a top 4 seed if Reggie Jackson can come back and have some health here. Like I said, Ish Smith is probably going to take on the bulk of the load here for this team as far as point guard goes, especially in the preseason.
And I hope when the Pistons scour, the landscape for a point guard, that they go find a true point guard, because there was some complaints about Reggie Jackson and whether or not he could be a leader and a guy that was a closer. Now, this guy definitely can put up a lot of points and he can get hot. But the problem that a lot of people saw was his consistency. When he would start jacking up threes and it wouldn't go right, he'd continue to jack up threes. And you noticed that once he kind of deferred to Andre Drummond and deferred to the shooters, then you said, oh, maybe the additions of the guy from Orlando last year that the team started to play a little bit better when Reggie Jackson wasn't the first focus. And I think, you have a core group of younger guys that can get hot. And so maybe if you have a true distributor and a guy that can facilitate that offense and, also allow Andre Drummond to be a significant piece in that offense, easier baskets, then I think you have an opportunity to have some success. I like what the Pistons are doing in terms of the offensive philosophy. They can score a lot of points. The question marks are going to be, are they going to be a solid defensive unit? Are they going to gel together and really help each other out on the defensive side of the ball? And then you got to ask, is Andre Drummond going to give up a lot of points on the free throw line? He's saying that he's using some virtual reality type assistance, and he's going to try to and what was really concerning was, I don't like, at the free throw line to say that you have a mental problem. He said that it's mental for him. And I get it. I can understand that it's complicated. Once you miss your first one, it gets in your head, and then you start, spraying the ball all over the place. But at that level, you really got to be there. And so for him, I understand he's still a young cat and he's still developing, but the mental side of it, I'm hoping that whatever he's tried, because it's a liability. It's a huge liability. One of the things we have to look at early is Andre Drummond going to be in the game in the last 6 minutes in money time? If he's not, if that's going to be the pattern again in this season, you're going to have a problem reaching your goal. So if they go out and get a point guard that's a true point guard, a distributor, and you can really, take advantage of the young cats that you brought in and improve defensively, I like what Stan Van Gundy does. He's probably the best administrator and best coach that is in town right now, and you have to take advantage of it. But remember, Stan Van Gundy has to improve as well. He's got to take this team and really improve them, take them to the next level, which means you really got to get to the postseason, and you got to have some kind of level of success this year, because people are patient, but only to a point. This team has been inching ever so close to some success here, and it's time for the payoff. And especially if you want to have some momentum and maybe roll into a new stadium with your Cats, the Red Wings, which I'm hearing, we've talked about it quite a bit over the last couple of years. The stadium that was built with the Red Wings and public dollars. And we've talked about now, the Red Wings now their final year at Joe Louis. And now we've said that what purpose would it be for the Pistons to maybe make a deal with the Red Wings and join them at that arena? And we poo-pooed it, and we said, well, it doesn't make any sense when you own the Palace outright. But talks are heating up. When Tellem was brought on for the Pistons, you thought, it doesn't look like he's just going to be there working with the Pistons, that he might have been brought on to facilitate a massive deal and arrangement with the Red Wings, maybe to share in that arena. And so if that's going to happen, I could see some advantages in that you're in a brand new facility. You could probably charge a little bit more, so more revenue comes in. You can do a lot more, and you can maybe, then really finally have a true solid downtown with all four major teams there. And hell, if the Pistons, those 40 days that are gone off the schedule, they're still going to fill that with other acts and things like that could potentially draw even more money. So I don't think it's a money thing when you got billionaires, looking at what they're trying to do. I really do think there's a massive deal in place. And at first I thought it was outlandish to think they were going to do it, but the more smoke I see around this, it really kind of looks like it's going to happen.
Yeah, like you said, there's a lot of smoke. So there's got to be some fire, right? And I don't think it's any secret that Tom Gores wants to be downtown in Detroit. I don't know if he likes necessarily where the team is situated. Now, you've got a beautiful complex with the Palace of Auburn Hills. Like you said, it's basically 41 dates out the year that you'll be losing there, and you can fill that with any number of things, and any type of concert, any type of a public event, whatever it is that you want to do. You can even sit there and work out something where you can lease out space in that building, and it'll work just fine. I think that there eventually will be some type of resolution to this, and I think the Pistons will move downtown. Again, Tom Gores wants this. You said it yourself. There's a reason for the moves that Tom Gores has made, especially with his front office staff, the people that he's brought in, trying to facilitate different huge deals to broker these things out and to make sure everything works out to where it's beneficial to both the Pistons and, in this case, it would be the Red Wings. So expect this to happen. Maybe not next year, but I would say within 3 years. Does that sound about right? I think maybe about 3 years, the Pistons and the Wings will be sitting there sharing a facility. And it looks like that's kind of the way Tom Gores wants to move.
And then combine that with the fact that maybe, just maybe, this MLS idea is going to take fruition and they can work through all the bureaucracy and all that mess, then I think you got an opportunity to really have, four major teams, a soccer team, a burgeoning minor league soccer team. You could have a lot of fun in that downtown area. And if you walk down there, it's a nice area by the Riverwalk, by the Joe and Cobo. It's nice. It's a happening place. It is revitalized in the downtown area. Now we just got to work on extending that out to the neighborhoods, and we'll get back to really facilitating the comeback of Detroit. So I'm excited. I think that it's good times, for the Pistons and Wings. If you go with the attitude of lowering your expectations a little bit, I think you can maybe be a little bit more satisfied and watch what's going on with these Red Wings. But, it's one of those things where when you look at the Red Wings, you wish they were further along, and you feel like they could be had they played the younger Cats. And another thing that's been kind of talked about around town, and there's a burgeoning kind of divide and debate, is, are the Red Wings using sabermetrics to kind of evaluate their players? Because when you look at some advanced sabermetric numbers and you look at guys that are been, matched up in terms of pairings and situations on the power play, penalty kill, you're starting to go, there are some disadvantages that the Red Wings are kind of employing here. If they just would use some real advanced sabermetrics, I think different players would be in different roles, and they might be further along. So it'll be interesting to keep an eye on if you're looking at subplots for the 2016 season, is just kind of peek at some advanced hockey sabermetrics. Now, I can't really fully explain it yet, but I'm starting to peek at it, and when you look at it, there is a divide in that the numbers people are going, the wings don't make moves that are advantageous for success based upon advanced sabermetrics. But for me, as I stand, I'm still with the eye test. I still go with what you're doing on the ice and what you're projected to do and to fulfill your role. So these guys that are brought in have to perform. You have to see a resurgence in Vanek. You have to see guys that have been brought in contribute right away. And then the young cats and the guys that are in the mid-range there, like a Pulkkinen, like, Tatar, Nyquist, they cannot regress like they did last year. If you see slight improvements in those guys and they contribute points, and then hell, and like we always say, like with the Tigers bullpen, like with the Lions quarterback, like with Red Wing goaltending, the special teams for the Red Wings, you cannot go stretches where you don't score on the power play. That was significantly bad last year, and it was a point of contention, is that on the power play, you cannot have these lulls where you don't put the puck in the net. That's an advantage. A power play is where you get to have a man advantage, and so you should be able to pass the puck around and shoot the damn puck and not be able to, go with this tic-tac nonsense all the time. Shoot the puck in the net, fundamentally, get someone in front of the net, get the rebounds, and bury it. And if they do that, if their power play ranking goes up significantly, you'll be further along.
Last year, the Red Wings struggled in just about every category. They were either middle of the road to subpar. It's a team that needs to get some goal scoring. That's why I like bringing up a guy like Anthony Mantha, because he knows how to put the puck in the net. Like you said, their power play was atrocious. Their penalty kill was brutal.
And you have to have a guy overall in the year have points more than 60.
If you can get improvements in those two areas, that's going to facilitate everything that you just talked about there. It's going to help get guys who are going to have more points than 60. It's going to help you score more goals per game. And it's going to keep the other team on edge because, look, if you have a high-powered offense, you're going to sit there, you're going to possess the puck most of the time. You're going to be able to generate shots. You're going to sit there and you're going to really sit there and force the issue in the other zone, which will then help out your goaltenders and should help bring their goals against down. And I'm expecting Peter Mrazek to take another step forward. I'm expecting Jimmy Howard to try to get things back on track here. But again, you've got an issue on the defense here. The defense hasn't been improved. It doesn't look any better. There's a guy in Winnipeg that wants out. He's from Rochester Hills. If Ken Holland has any brains in his head, he would sit there and try to facilitate a trade and go get Jacob Trouba and bring him in here. He's your big right-handed power shot that you want. The guy wants a bigger role on the team. That's why he wants out of Winnipeg. You can bring him here, and he would be your bona fide number one defender. And that's what he wants to be. Because if I've got to go through another season seeing Nicholas Kronwall as your number one defender, I'm going to lose my mind. I can't handle it. Nicholas Kronwall on a good team is probably your fifth or sixth defender. On this team, he should probably be your third defender. Dan DeKeyser's your best defenseman here. And on a good team, Dan DeKeyser's probably a number three guy. So that's where you're lacking on this team is defensively. And again, Jacob Trouba can carry the puck. He can score goals, and he's a stud. Go get him. He's a hometown boy. He wants to come home. Go get him.
Now, you know who's going to be the first recipient of the DSP Space Mountain Award?
Who?
Ric Flair. In the bossiest of boss move.
I wanted to talk to you about this.
I was seeing, he was on right now, the WWE Network, Masters of the Mic. So Ric Flair has an awesome podcast where he shares stories about, his storied wrestling career. And he takes tweets and comments on the current state of WWE, his daughter who just recently lost the WWE Women's title. And, he takes, the host is, Southern, has that nice Southern draw. And the host, takes a tweet from a fan. And the fan was, asking, is there a celebrity that has taken a ride on Space Mountain? And that is a code for, Ric Flair was, his persona was a, wheelin' dealin' pimp. And his persona was that if any woman was near him, he'd be able to have that conquest because he was such a studly dude. And so he's talking and he's like, oh, celebrity? Yeah, of course. And he slipped it in there on his podcast. Oh, yeah, I bagged Halle Berry back in 1997, after she was with David Justice. And everyone's like, what? Ric Flair, if he wasn't already a boss among bosses in the wrestling world, you go out there and you just, damn, Halle freaking Berry was with Ric Flair. What a boss.
Did you not find that story a little hard to believe?
No, because they asked it and he said it right away.
I know.
And he was specific about it. And why would you lie about it?
Because it's Ric Flair and he's crazy.
That'd be even better. Because if you're going to lie about being with somebody, that's not a bad name to throw out there because obviously we're talking about it. It got out there like wildfire.
Yeah.
Halle Berry and Ric Flair. Woo! Badass, dude. Space Mountain Award.
Dealing, jet flying, limousine driving stud.
That brings some more legitimacy than that Ric Flair was. I mean, you could tell at that time when he was in his late 30s, early 40s, the guy
when
like
he
that.
was the king of the wrestling world, yeah. But I mean, honestly, have you seen him in a pair of trunks lately? It's
no.
not good.
Oh, dude, he's old and retired now.
Yeah, now. But
Yeah.
even back in what, 1997?
Oh, he always looked wrinkly and faded.
Yeah.
Like leather skin.
Yeah, like he had permatan going.
Oh, man.
Brutal. Dude, if Halle Berry took a ride on that. She had some issues, dude. David Justice left her broken.
Yes, sir. Great podcast, sir. Episode 165 in the books. Let's just hope for some more positivity this week in terms of Detroit sports, because these last couple weeks have been brutal. My goodness. And all you can ask for is that these guys try their absolute best, put on a good performance, and let's see where this shakes out. But Tigers, Lions, let's just hope that Michigan can keep this train rolling and really have some positive stories to talk about.
That's right. Go blue.
Second deck.
Sorry, Detroit. Didn't quite work out.
And all I can say is Detroit Sports Podcast scores.
I hear voices in my head. They counsel me. They understand. They talk to me. They talk to me. They tell me things that I will do. They show me things not to you.